Ladies and gentlemen, time now to get to the heart and soul of the matter. Here to talk about the Heartfulness Way, heart-paced meditations for spiritual transformations are Joshua Pollock and Sumana Roy. Please welcome them on stage with a huge round of applause. Mr. Pollock is a heartfulness meditation coach and co-author of the bestseller, The Heartfulness Way. He has conducted meditation sessions across the US, India, and Europe. An accomplished classical violinist, Mr. Pollock has also collaborated with A.R. Rahman on several films, including Gajni and Delhi 6. In conversation with him is Ms. Roy, whose first non-fiction work, How I Became a Tree, was published in Feb 2017. Her first novel, Missing, was published last year. Her poems and essays have appeared in Granta, Guernica, and other journals. I request Ms. Roy to take the session forward.
Thank you, Julie. A very good early afternoon to all of you. Let me introduce Joshua again. It'll help us to place the talk or the conversation that we are going to have. Joshua Pollock is a heartfulness meditation coach and co-author of the best-selling book, The Heartfulness Way. He has conducted meditation classes across the United States, India, and Europe. He's a sought-after speaker, lecturing at companies including Amazon, Google, Microsoft, the World Bank, United Nations headquarters, the New York Times, and a host of academic institutions. He has appeared on All India Radio, Doordarshan, ABC, and CBS in the United States. An accomplished classical violinist, Joshua has performed internationally as a soloist and chamber musician and collaborated with celebrated composer A.R. Rahman on numerous films, including Gajni and Delhi 6. He lives in Delhi now. Let me get to the heart of the matter straight away. Joshua, what is heartfulness and how did you come to it?
Thank you for that nice introduction. And I welcome all of you here. First, I would just like to, I'd like to request everybody's sympathy, actually, because speaking about heartfulness, speaking about meditation, speaking about spirituality, we're speaking about something which is sort of the ultimate nature of reality, right? And how can you speak about such a thing? Even, the Upanishads, when you get to the end of the Upanishads, all it says is neti, neti, not this, not this. So even the great rishis were tongue-tied. So if even the great rishis are tongue-tied, I don't think any of us have much hope to be able to convey this topic properly. Nevertheless, heartfulness is all about this, the heart. It is the core of our existence. And by getting in touch with the heart, we're able to express and manifest the most essential qualities that are inherent to a human being. Now, I came across this maybe 15, 16 years ago. And at that time, it was a difficult time for me. My younger sister had just passed away in a car accident. And my whole life I'd been interested in spirituality. But at the same time, that interest, I don't know how genuine it was. You see, I come from a place where there's not a lot to do. I come from a rural part of Maine. You don't think of the US like this, but in my part of the US, we actually didn't have hot running water. We didn't have a toilet in the house. There was a town, like a village of maybe 200 people, right? So there wasn't much to do, except my father had an enormous library of books. He still has it. And I would just read these books. And there were so many things like Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the Tao Te Ching, books on Buddhism, books on Christianity, and they interested me. But they didn't interest me enough to actually trigger me to do anything about it. But then a tragedy came. See, I think, whenever I travel around the country, this country or the US, And I end up meeting a lot of people, speaking to them. I said, why are you interested in meditation? Of course, if you ask some great, rishi, they may tell you that the purpose of meditation is something like God realization. But I think most people approach it because they just want relief. They simply want relief. They have suffered, and they want relief from that suffering. And in fact, one of the spiritual guides in our tradition, whom we call Babuji, a friend of mine once went to him back in the 1970s and said, why do people meditate anyway? And he said, to escape the jaws of the wolf. To escape the jaws of the wolf. And that wolf takes many different forms in life, And so I think that's what I was trying to do as well. Now, having achieved a sort of foundation of peace, a baseline of peace, then you discover slowly that there's so much more. There's so much more. That peace becomes a foundation upon which so many beautiful states of being and experiences, upon which they stand. So this journey has been unfolding ever since then for me.
Would you tell us a little about your life in music and whether that abetted your journey towards heartfulness? Do you see that retrospectively?
I think it doesn't matter what you do. If you're a musician, if you're a banker, anything you do, I think meditation, my grandmother used to tell me, whatever you want to do in life is good, but make sure you take care of your health. Because, unless you're healthy, you can't do anything else, right? Same thing with meditation. It doesn't matter what you do in life, but if you also meditate, that will completely create a new context for all your activities. After all, if you're familiar with the Bhagavad Gita, you see yoga described and defined as skill in action. The action is never specified. It's a general thing, skill in action, whatever that action may be. Right? So whether it's music or any other thing, I don't think it matters.
I'll quote from the book. You say, to practice heartfulness is to seek the essence beyond the form, the reality behind the ritual. Would you please explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, see, I think a lot of us, I was born and brought up outside of the bounds of religion. My father came from one religion, and he gave up his religion. My mother came from another religion, and she didn't practice either. But a lot of us come from, different environments, different cultures, different belief systems. And what I think this is all about, meditation is all about, the way we can define spirituality even, is experience. The whole thing is experiential, right? Instead of having to believe in something, you experience it instead. You can say, I believe in God. But if you haven't experienced God, that belief isn't helping you very much, right? And if you have experienced God, then what is the need for belief? Belief becomes redundant now, right? So nobody would ever, in this book, which I've co-authored with my guide, Kamlesh Patel, and it's a conversation between the two of us, he says somewhere, nobody ever says, I believe in the moon, or I believe in the ocean, or I believe in the stars. You don't need to believe in them, because you can see them. So this is about going beyond the constraints of belief, going beyond the need for a ritual, going beyond the need to try to seek the ultimate through some sort of external form, but going to the essence of it and experiencing that essence and being benefited by it.
Yeah, this follows, what I'm going to tell you now follows from this. Again, from the book, you say, experience is greater than knowledge. Any good teacher understands this. And would you take on from there and tell us exactly what you mean? And
I mean, in the same way, another example from the book is a chemistry class, right? So in a chemistry class, you'll attend the lectures. You'll understand the theory. That's important. But at the same time, you won't remember everything as well. You won't learn it unless you actually, perform the experiment yourself. You see how these chemicals interact with each other. You understand what the reaction is. You're given guidance. The teacher guides you. He doesn't just say, there are the chemicals, do whatever you want, mix anything together, take this, sodium and just pour it all over everything. No. Gives you some formulas, and then you see how they worked. You see how they interact. So that's what this is. We have a practice. Okay, we're given some sort of guidelines, but now you experiment with the practice, have your own experience with it. Nobody will dictate to you, this is how you should feel. You see how you feel. A very experiential, experimental process where you are the experimenter, you're the subject of the experiment, and you're the results of the experiment.
What is the role of a guru in this, a guide? And is it essential to have one? When you were writing this book, were you thinking of the book as the guide, or the book as the guru, as it were?
The real guru is always within. This is something that we learn to access through meditation, through this tool of meditation, this exercise of meditation. We go within and find that ultimate thing within us, connect ourselves to that, and receive its inspiration. See, a guru, a person who is a guru, I think they're not somebody to be followed, but they're somebody who performs a sort of back-end kind of role, somebody who maybe supports or guarantees the progress that you receive through the practice, but that doesn't mean that you have to interact. That doesn't mean they're just there in the background. When I started this is entirely about your relationship with yourself. That's the important thing, your relationship with yourself. So when I wrote this book is a series of conversations between myself and my guru, right? It's really uncommon situation because Daji, my guru, Kamlesh Patel, he doesn't actually speak very much. It's not usual for him to speak very much. So, in fact, quite the opposite usually happens. When you sit with somebody, in the presence of somebody who has such inner silence about them, right? That inner silence becomes sort of contagious, right? And now you lose your questions that you had. You may have had some restlessness, but now you don't have your question. You haven't had the answer to your question, but you don't feel the restlessness which is behind the urge to ask the question. So in that situation, you don't want to ask. The guru is not going to tell. And it's amazing, I feel, that it's some kind of miracle that we have this book at all. Series of questions and answers. I don't know how it happened, and I don't know if it's reproducible either.
You are in this book trying to hold or capture what is essentially an oral tradition into the form of the book. How difficult was this process, and did you make discoveries on the way while doing this?
Yes, there were a lot of discoveries. I think this book, if you read it, there's questions and answers. I think the book could have been more interesting, actually. I think the book could have been far more interesting. There were many incidents where, I would speak with him. He would tell me something. Okay, I remember one instance about prayer, the concept of prayer. We spoke about prayer, fine. Then, this was a conversation we had in Staten Island, New York City. And I was staying at his house for about a week. Now, I went to my room, and I went to bed. And before I went to bed, I tried out some prayer. And I had an experience, and I had a completely new, all of a sudden, revelation myself about this. So the next morning, I went back and I shared with him, well, we were talking about it in this kind of way, but actually what I realized now is something else. And he just smiled and he said, put it in the book. So actually the whole experience was this process was very experiential. Everything wasn't strictly in terms of I ask a question and he gives an answer. It would sometimes be I would ask a question, then I would go have an experience and tell him the answer, and he would smile and say, that's the answer, put that answer in the book, So it was very interesting.
Do you think there is a relationship between meditation and the imagination?
Well, I think there's a relationship between meditation and creativity.
That was my following question,
Yeah.
actually.
See, imagination is something which always takes us away from reality. Meditation brings us towards reality. Imagination is something different. But creativity is something which allows you to access. Creativity is something where, I'll give you an example. You see, we don't only meditate. Meditation in this heartfulness approach, that's one aspect. We also have something which we call cleaning. And that's actually very unique. I don't think this concept of cleaning exists anywhere else. Now, what is it that's being cleaned? Every single day we have thoughts about things. And those thoughts are not merely thoughts. Those thoughts they often have a positive tinge or a negative tinge, a positive charge or a negative charge. You think about something and you feel positive about it or you feel negative about it. Maybe the degree, the intensity of that emotion changes. Sometimes you feel intensely negative, a terrible blow-up, a reaction of anger, or very exuberant on the other hand, right? So there we are with our thoughts and our emotions. And whenever we have an emotional reaction, now the question we can ask ourselves is what happens to that emotion afterwards? Does it just evaporate? No, it doesn't just evaporate. It may blow over, but its effects remain with us in some way. We know that because that emotion can be re-triggered later on in a similar situation. I think we've all experienced this, which proves to us that every emotion that we have, it somehow stays within us in the subconscious. That emotional residue or the emotional content of our memories, it's there. Now, in yogic terminology, there's a word for it. We call it samskara. But it doesn't really matter what you call it. It's there inside us. Now, think what happens. If an old emotion can be re-triggered by a new environment, right, that means that we are perceiving our reality through the lens of our past experiences, through the lens of our past emotions and thoughts and reactions. In other words, our awareness is conditioned by our past. And we are not truly perceiving the reality of the present moment, are we? So, in that case, if we can actually remove that residue, that would allow us to actually perceive the moment as it is, the person as they are, the reality of that person, and the moment, every moment is unique too. So every response that we have to that person or to that moment will be a unique response, will be an original response, will be a creative response, right? Not based upon stifling precedent, not based upon any template that we have. And we know as we get older, you know how your father is going to react to a situation. You know how your mother is going to react to the situation. Their tendencies have become so predictable over time, So with this cleaning method that we perform every single day, we actually remove that residue from us, and we can feel it too. We feel the lightness. This is just theory. I'm speaking about theory. But you don't need to believe this. You just do this cleaning. And after a few minutes of it, you'll feel such lightness in yourself. And you'll think, if I do this cleaning and now I'm feeling light, that must mean that I was carrying something with me before. There was some burden which has now been removed. And I always think of the straw that broke the camel's back. You know that saying? You keep adding pieces of straw, and finally you add the last one, the camel's back breaks. But it's the opposite. You're already, I don't want to call anyone a camel, but we're already carrying this load upon us. And all of a sudden, the entire thing is lifted up. Imagine the lightness that you feel by contrast now. So that's what we experience every single day. But the more important thing, I would suggest, is to find a way to become non-reactive so that we're not continuously accumulating this. And that's what we achieve through meditation. Through meditation, we're able to create such a peaceful state within ourselves. And with that peace, now we make it dynamic and we carry it with us in our day. And when we're experiencing that, it doesn't become possible for us to just react to every single thing. You know? So on one hand, we're removing the accumulated burden. On the other hand, we're not creating a new burden. So we become lighter and lighter, purer and purer, and more identical with our true nature, the highest nature that we all carry, and expressing that in our lives.
That's a beautiful answer. Joshua, since heartfulness, the way you practice it, is based so much on experience and not on theory alone, I would request you, if it is possible for you, to take us through this process. Wouldn't that be, would you agree with that?
Shall we meditate for a few minutes? Okay.
That would be wonderful, yeah, if it was possible.
Okay. Let me briefly explain this process. Okay. Here we meditate on the presence of light in the heart. The presence of light in the heart. Now, some people ask me, yes, but is there really light in the heart? Okay, so I'm not asking you to believe this, but take it in a different spirit. Take it as a hypothesis. A hypothesis which is something which you entertain in order to experiment with it and verify it. So entertain this idea that there is light in the heart. Now, what do we do with it? We simply close our eyes and presume that it's there. We don't have to imagine it, okay? You don't have to close your eyes and attempt to see some kind of flame or some kind of light. Nothing like that. That would be artificial. See, this is not something you can see. This light is something which can only be felt. This is something you feel. And that's why we use the heart, which is the organ of feeling, after all. So, we take this light, and you can even give this light a special quality, not just any kind of light in a mundane sense, but you can even think of it as you like, as light from your source, or even divine light, Divya Prakash, something like this. Okay? So the process is as follows. You simply close your eyes and gently bring your attention to the heart, and now you wait. You wait and see what kind of experience gradually emerges over the course of your meditation. Very simple thing. Nothing complicated. You don't need to concentrate. You don't need to focus. Just put your attention on your heart. Wait and see what happens. Feel what happens. Now, I will walk you through a short guided relaxation. I'll say relax your legs and your arms, because when your body is relaxed, it'll be easier for you to meditate. And then I'll say, please start meditation, and we'll meditate, and then I'll tell you when it's finished, okay? One request I have is to silence the mobile phones so that they don't ring when we're trying to meditate. Please close your eyes and sit comfortably. Bring your attention to your toes. You can move your toes and relax them. You can even imagine a healing current of energy from the earth entering through the soles of your feet, through the bottom of your feet, and relaxing your feet. And allow this energy to move up your legs slowly and gently, relaxing your legs, relaxing your body as it moves. Your ankles and lower legs, your knees, and relax your upper legs, your hips, Let your waist relax, your abdominal muscles, and relax all the muscles of your chest. And your whole back, all the way from the base of your spine to your shoulders. Wherever your body is in contact with a seat, with a chair, relax that place. Relax your shoulders. Let them feel as if they're melting. Your upper arms, elbows, all the muscles of your forearms. Relax your wrists and hands and fingers, and you can even feel energy flowing out from your fingertips. Relax your neck and relax your jaws. Let your mouth relax and all the muscles of your face. Let your eyes be softly and gently closed. Relax your ears and earlobes and all the way to the top of your head. And now, let your whole body completely relax. And gently bring your attention to your heart, where light from the source is present. Light which is drawing you inward. And please start meditation. And that's all. Now, you can just remain with your eyes closed, if you like, for a few moments. And observe how you feel now that meditation is over. Or even just enjoy how you feel. And gradually, as you feel ready, you can slowly open your eyes. But remain in touch with that feeling that you have.
Time for questions from you now, perhaps from the experience that you've undergone, or whatever questions you might have. Yes, let's begin from the left. Yes, please. Would you need a mic? Yes. Oh, after her, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Joshua. My question is, we try to, at least me, let me speak for myself, try to relax, go with you. But the mind is such a monkey and it chatters, drags me. I try to pull it back, and all in a matter of 3 minutes or 2 minutes, and you're just wondering what's happening to you. I mean, it's not the first time. I tried it many times. So my question is, do we allow it to be, let it be, over a period of time I will learn? Or do I bring it back and attempt and feel frustrated and
I
don't
understand
know.
your question.
I don't know what it is.
See, I think we have to understand that we feel that our meditation, that the course of our meditation is being governed according to our efforts to control it or guide it in a particular direction. But this is not the case. There are other things at work, and the experience that we're having with our minds or anything else, our consciousness in general, is a result of something that's happening on an inner level, and we're just experiencing its effects. So I don't think the attempt to direct our meditation will meet with success. In fact, the best thing is just to be open to whatever experience it is that you have without having an expectation, or, where you're trying to take the meditation may be a different place than the meditation itself is leading. We don't know where it is taking us. So when we interfere, see, often what happens is, I mentioned earlier that we harbor many things within us. Now, what happens? It's like when you open a Coke bottle, right? Thumbs up, something, right? You open a Coke bottle, and what happens is all the carbon rushes out. There's fizz, and there's lots of turbulence inside. Now, if you leave the cap, if you leave the bottle cap off and allow it to just stand there for a day or so, and you take a sip, it won't taste good anymore because no more carbon. It's gone flat. Now, that's not good with a drink, but with us, that stillness, that is a positive thing. So when we meditate, you have to understand that all those things we're harboring, they're rushing out like that fizz. And so in fact, sometimes you feel even more disturbed. But afterwards, how do you feel? So this is why we should judge our meditation, if at all, only by the effect that it leaves us with, how we feel after the meditation is over. You may be moving towards a state of peacefulness, but the journey from here to that condition involves, as all journeys do, involves movement. And in movement, there's no stability.
That's a wonderful answer. Thank you. Oh, okay.
Sir, very warm greetings to the Pollock, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry, I came a bit late. I came to the hall. I am also a meditator, practicing Vipassana of Lord Buddha. I want to know the type of meditation you are teaching us today so that I can learn something more on that.
This is called heartfulness meditation. It is also called, we have a Hindi name for it, called Sahaj Marg, or natural path. It is based, just as Vipassana is based in the Buddhist tradition, this is based in the Raja Yoga tradition on the same principles which you see in Rishi Patanjali's Yoga Sutras.
Thank you.
Sir, very warm greetings to the Pollock, sir. Sir, hats off to you, sir, just especially being a foreigner, just you have taken the meditation and spirituality as a way of life. But as we know that there are different forms of meditation, like open eye meditation, closed eye meditation, focusing on our breath, and Zen meditation. And there is a confusion among a lot of people just which form of meditation is the best to practice. And one more thing is that just everybody knows the importance of the meditation, but still the material life is dominating us. So somewhere just we are getting a bit disconnected with this meditation, and we are, how to say, just focusing on our materialistic life, and how to refocus and rechannelize ourselves back to this way of life.
Yes.
To having a much more disciplined way to practice the meditation on the daily basis. Yes,
The meditation that's the best meditation is the meditation that works, right? You try something, if it works, the first sign you'll get is a feeling of peace. That isn't the goal, but that's a signal that you can continue following this path. Now, basically, it's like this. This is something, you have your soul. You have the innermost essence. The nature of that is stillness. The nature of that is peacefulness, is balance. Okay? On the other hand, you have the physical body, the opposite end of this spectrum. In the physical world, there's only movement, there's only change. There's unrest, there's no stability. Right? In this physical world, when we try to find peace, we can find it for a moment and then it escapes us again. Right? Now, in between these two, the physical and the inner, there's something else. It's consciousness, right? That's the interface. And there, that's where we have all of our experiences, all of our thoughts, our feelings, everything. Now, which direction is your consciousness oriented in? When it's oriented towards the external, then we imbibe all those effects. We imbibe that restlessness. We imbibe that instability. When it's focused on the inner, then we imbibe that balance. We imbibe that peacefulness. We imbibe that silence and serenity. Having done so, we now become, and we do that through meditation, having done so, we now become, in a way, vaccinated against these external effects, and now we become free to lead our lives in the external world with our relationships, our jobs, and everything like that, without suffering the consequences. So this leads us to a balanced life, an integrated life between the external and the internal, the material and the spiritual.
We
My
have
question-
time
Sorry.
for only one question, so probably they can
Why-
ask the questions together.
Sorry, my question
two.
builds on the previous one, in fact.
Okay.
If that's
And
okay,
then
can I-
you.
yes.
Yeah.
My question is very specific. Thank you for the lovely process, by the way. My question is that when one is in a profession like counseling, for instance, which I am in, and I work with young adults and I encounter a lot of emotional upheaval, how does one retain the capacity to feel with them and empathize, therefore, while also maintaining that equilibrium that you spoke of, that base level of peace that you spoke of? And some part of it you shared just now about keeping your focus inward and therefore having that, being geared to meet the world with that. But specifically when you encounter it day after day, how do you still feel with them but bring yourself back?
Yes.
What does that happen?
I would say that a person who meditates, in some way their consciousness becomes expansive, okay? That means that it isn't confined. See, as a meditator, it doesn't mean that I cannot feel sadness. It doesn't mean that I can't feel some passing fear or something like this. But it does mean that I'm not a prisoner of that emotion. I can experience it, but yet, at the same time, I'm floating free in some other dimension. At the same time, so when we expand, those little currents, those little waves pass through us, but they don't stay locked within us. They just pass through us. So your sensitivity, your empathy, I mean, these are qualities of the heart. Right? When we meditate on the heart, these only expand, but you're not going to be held prisoner of these emotions. You try it and see.
Yeah, the last
So,
question,
yeah.
please.
I'm a psychology student, and I'd like to know, like, people who have mental illness, for example, chronic depression. Do you think the heartfulness meditation or any other type of meditation will help them, or have you explored that area into the mental disorder?
For all forms of chronic disease, I can only recommend that they see a medical professional who's very qualified to deal with that disease. For somebody who's depressed because they have something to be depressed about, somebody just died, some tragedies happened, for that person it would be very helpful. But for somebody who has a chemical imbalance, I think the best thing is to allow a medical professional to make a recommendation for them.
Thank you, Joshua. I will have to wrap up now, but he'll be available to sign copies of his book and perhaps also for an extended conversation with you. Thank you very much, and thank you, Joshua.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to our guests for that relaxing session. So glad lunch break comes next.